Can you feel me now?
We're in Fall River, Massachusetts, at Brian Fox Studios. This is just breathtaking and overwhelming. And I'm here with my good friend Brian, who is an incredible artist, somebody I admire, and who I followed him for quite a long time. And even when I'm getting here today, I've been to the studio before and just reflected back that it's been a couple of years, a few years. A lot has happened, Brian, since we last chatted. World-ending pandemics and elections and grandchildren in my life. And
thanks for coming down. This is great to see you in person again.
anytime I can go down Route 24 is a bucket list thrill.
It's like an amusement park ride.
Right? And you've always been on my mind. So I don't feel like it's been that long because I'm always thinking of you and what you do and following you. Art is an incredible thing, right? It touches and moves people, and your talent is astounding. And I never forget when we had first met, you were so humble about it, saying that it's you're a vessel for God's ability to come through your hands to sort of convey a message. And it's just inspiring, and I think it's incredible for the people who see this, who might be interested in a career in art. And the second half of the show, we're going to talk about that. But for this part, I am making the assumption there's Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Brian Fox, like Brian Fox. Like, I know too many Brians, so I put you in that category, right? So I'll put the Brian.
I don't belong there.
Brian Fox.
Yeah, no.
So. Yeah. Brian Fox. And so, nevertheless, you're to me, this first part of the show, I'm going to assume everyone who sees it is going to be a friend of yours, somebody that you've known, inspired, touched, and get right into your project that you're working on for the veterans. And maybe you can just tell me what that's all about.
Yeah, I mean, so I'll start where I'm heading and then kind of work backwards a little bit. So what I'm trying to do is I am putting together a solo art show, which will be held for the first time at the Narrows Center for the Arts in Fall River.
Okay.
It's a beautiful, beautiful gallery space. And it's all my military works, which over probably the last 5 years has taken a bigger chunk of what I've done versus the sports and celebrity work, which I've been fortunate enough to be known for. Mm. So that's what the project is going to be. It's this solo art show, and it's really all about educating the public about who these guys are, what they've done, what kind of sacrifices they've done in just kind of an interesting way. How it came about was I've worked multiple projects, military, but just here and there, was when I worked with the council to help build or raise money to build a permanent Vietnam memorial wall in Fall River. And they came to me, the Vietnam veterans came to me and said, hey, can you create a painting that would help raise money for us? And I said, okay, I've done that before for many charities. Again, the celebrities do that and the athletes. And so same model. I said, sure. And I didn't know what I was getting myself into because I just go, yeah, it sounds like a project, maybe take me a month. I said, but can I ask if you guys have in-country Vietnam veterans who work with you, who you're comfortable with, or who are comfortable coming into the studio, and I don't need to know what to paint, I just need to know why I'm going to paint this, because I don't want to just paint something that doesn't mean anything to anybody. So they said, okay. So long story short, they come in.
See, in the age 34, this is where you had your machine gun mount over here. What was it, Huey? Hey.
I don't know, could they move it around? Could you?
Oh yeah, you could move it.
I always remember the machine gun being.
There were times the guys could just pull it out of the mount too. And start shooting this way. I know I used to have my gunner on the other side. Occasionally take his gun out and shoot out this side of the door. We were taking fire on one side and keep the enemy's head down while we were picking up medevacs. We'd have two guns shooting at the enemy while we were on the ground so we'd get the medevacs in. You take a box of those things, an ammo box of 50 calibers, that's heavy.
So the
Rounds
M60,
are like,
Oh, yeah.
so the M60 ammo was lighter.
the guy they're putting on the helicopter.
Yeah.
Like we used to take all their equipment off, belt,
Okay.
right, just take it all off.
So no equipment on him would be more accurate.
Oh, yeah.
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 See this notch right here? There's a door that came down this way. And it looked like it opened up like this. And after that first meeting, my life had changed because I just sat there and listened to these in-country Vietnam veterans talk about what was important to them.
It would be the nose around.
Oh, so this here, this part here, because this is the shell that this guy's throwing here, right? And that's what, and they keep using these over and over, don't they?
But, yeah, they had 105 along in Plymouth, person who worked in Plymouth. And they have shell casing all over the place.
105 is for the basic.
Yeah, you had to be protected well over there because that base was taken on the average of about 300 rounds a day. And one day we took over 1,000 rounds in one day. If your heart doesn't change or break even after listening to these guys, I was changed after that. Believe it or not, now I realize I got this important project to do. This is not just some decorative painting I'm going to do. So, and that's it in a nutshell. So, we did one painting for them, and there's so much to that whole project. But they would come in and help me. They would make sure I had the painting right. They would come in, but every day they would come into the studio. They would pop in, and we'd have a coffee, and we'd sit and we'd talk. And that's rare if you know about in-country Vietnam. But they don't talk. So for them to come in and start to open up little by little, I was even moved more.
And I was here at one of those times. Even their spouses or partners were surprised. They were like, he doesn't talk about this at home.
Yeah.
And you were drawing something out of them that even now I start to get a little emotional because I'm like, that's so hard for these guys who bottled it all up and held it all in, but it's so cathartic for them. But go.
And I didn't realize it.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was getting myself.
Right.
And I told these guys,
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was getting myself into, and it did change me tremendously. So much so that I said, one painting is not enough. I want to do more to tell your story, more narrative. There's so much more to what they lived through, the war itself, and people don't know it.
I think talking about it is always better. Talking about it is always better. You get it out of your system. Get it out of your system. I talk to a few other guys, constantly. Because I'm constantly talking to Brian.
Yeah, it was wet, and we used to leave, sometimes you'd leave a pack of matches, a book of matches, and within an hour or two, it'd be soaking wet. This is just
the humidity.
Oh, the humidity. So I'm gonna really make sure that that's almost like a monsoon season feel where everybody's just wet and muddy
and miserable.
and miserable. Yeah. I said, but let me paint some more. It doesn't make business sense to do it because, being a sole provider for your family, you're like, we got to take commissions, you got to pay the bills.
And these things don't take an hour to do.
This one I've been working on for 4.5 years.
Jeez.
I keep changing, and there's other ones 5
Right.
years. So I said, look, I'll keep doing this if you guys come back and continue to come into the studio and make sure I get it right.
Yeah.
And more guys would come in, and different people would come in, Vietnam veterans, and they would talk about different things, and they would also talk technically. Well, we use this gear, or we had this, and you might want to change that, and then they would talk about some of the things they lived through, and you're just going, I got to get this right. So it's not just some G.I. Joe picture.
Yeah.
It's so that kind of blossomed into a bigger painting, the paintings of the Vietnam veterans. And at the same time, I work with Matt Light he used to play for the Patriots, and he has his own foundation. And he got connected with special forces guys from the early 2000s, guys who went over the horse soldiers, who went over, there's a movie about them, 12 Strong. And there's a guy named, a Green Beret named Scott Neal. And he was the first crew over there after 9/11, shut down the Taliban. And another guy by the name of Kevin Holland, who he was on the team that he pulled Saddam Hussein out of the hole.
Ooh, wow.
So, but nobody knows these guys,
Right.
and that's okay for them. But now they're retired, and I said, Matt, how about if we, instead of painting the athletes and doing a series of paintings signed and numbered, let's do a series of paintings on these guys, and people can collect those, and the money will go towards your foundation. But we'll also educate them about who they are and what they've sacrificed and what they've done, which is amazing. You start to. So I got a chance to work with them. So each year I paint a new one of those guys for Matt's foundation. And again, it educates people and it raises money for the charity. And it does a number of things. And it just honors these guys who are just so like, you want to paint me?
Right.
Like, you have no idea like how great you guys are. So the show, to come back to the show at the Narrows, it's going to have all these paintings in it. And it's really going to be about showcasing these veterans.
And
on
is
all
there a
different
date
levels.
set for that?
It will be in the fall
Okay.
of 2025. So I believe it's going to be October, November, December. So they want to run it for 3 months,
Yep.
which is usually it's a month.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So they're going to have schools come in. They're going to use it for education. They're going to use it for all these different, really for what it
And
should be.
Veterans Day weekend in November would be a perfect.
Another
right.
thing, the Army's 250th anniversary is this year. The 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War ending is this year. So it just all works out really, really well.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a VIP opening. There's going to be also a public opening. We're going to have schools come in and speak. Some of the Vietnam veterans are going to come talk to the kids.
Wow.
Talk to the kids.
Yeah.
Like, so I think it'll be what it's meant to be for. And it's to educate people and get people so much on their phones. And I'm guilty too. We don't pick up books as much, but you'll stop and look at a painting, and then you'll read about it. And then you'll get to really appreciate who these guys were, what they lived through.
I was most impressed with the process when these guys were here in this very studio, and we're in Fall River. You luckily have your battleship parked right outside, so it's a nice way to commute to work, by the way, having that battleship. And they were pointing out details to you, and I can't remember specifically because I wasn't, in the Army or in military, but we wouldn't wear our artillery belts or something or our canteens there because it would give us like a rash from the moisture because we would be in the rain for 6 weeks or something, and we would never do this or never do that, and you would make adjustments on the fly, and they were like, as soon as you got it right, their breath would be taken away because it took them right back there, and they were like super engaged with the adjustments, and it was as though you were taking their memories and putting them right in front of their face. I can't imagine in that moment that they would ever want to remember that again, but it's part of the healing process. But that was what impressed me the most. It was just goosebumps, and you couldn't breathe when you were hearing these guys talk. But is that how the process goes? You bring them in, and because are these all real? Tell me about the subjects of the paintings. Are they non-discriminate generalizations of soldiers, or are they actual people, or how do you do that? Like, what would be
For the Vietnam series, I made them up.
Adaptations.
I made these
Right,
paintings.
okay.
You know what I mean? For the Special Forces, clearly they're somebody specific.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did one World War II, Major Winters, Band of Brothers. He's a specific guy. Thomas Hudner, Korean War. That'll be in the show too. He's specific. Mm-hmm. The Vietnam stuff is not as specific people or specific.
But I know that guy.
Well,
I know that guy.
I
You know
learned
what
I got that.
Yeah.
They would come in, and I didn't know this. And when you were talking about how it was healing to them, I didn't realize that was happening either. I'm not a veteran. I didn't serve. I play with paint for a living, so it's another world to me. So I was so moved and changed and started to see what was happening when I would work with these guys in his paintings to see what would go on or the reactions to it. And I'm just an artist. I'm just pissed off because I'm not getting it right.
Right. But it's I know, and you're such a humble guy, and I think that for an outside observer who can't spell my name properly with a pencil that anyone can read, sees what you. I would swear that you were a veteran, right? That these are coming. So when you see a painting of like Van Gogh, and you can kind of look and see the pain that he was going through in the blue period, and yet whatever, that kind of art interpretation, and you appreciate, man, he was struggling right there, right? I see this, and you're doing it even a step more by appreciating, taking this, you're almost like a medium, like a transformative medium, like a spiritual medium that's taking what's in their souls and putting it there, which is far more miraculous, I think, and quite amazing. And I've never seen that kind of thing before. And maybe I'm wrong, but I mean, it's as though you were there.
Well, I think the only credit I can take is that I listened to them. Because one, I knew, I grew up, I'm old enough to know about the war as a kid, you know what I mean? And you realize how they were treated. And I knew that. My dad was in the Navy in '67, and he never went over, but you kind of get a glimpse of how these guys were treated. My dad always told me that. And so when they start to talk, you start to go, this is important. You don't really know why it's important yet, but you go into something. And then it becomes, like I said, it's not just a decorative painting or that, which is nice. Yeah. This is something with more responsibility. So you go, and I know they don't trust people. So I got to get it right. So you're going, oh, this is a heavy. And I would watch documentaries, I would read books, whatever they told me, I would change the things they would tell me, I would listen to what they would say. And so much so, the 1 month job turned into a 6 month job because I would change that painting so many times because I wouldn't feel like it was right, whether it's the looks. And again, it's made up soldiers. I mean, that's not a specific
How did you
kind.
feel it wasn't right? Like
the looks on their faces, and when you're talking to these guys. And I would make the technical details the best I thought. And they would come in and go, no, this needs to change, that needs to change. And you would make those changes, the technical stuff. But I learned also, I was trying to get the faces right. Because they would talk about, you got to remember these guys are 17, 18, 19, kids.
Right.
With guns.
And your kids, my kids,
they're at that age, you're just going, oh, it's mind-blowing.
Right.
I can't picture my kid living
I get
with that.
scared when they're out past 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Never mind being in Southeast Asia.
18 years old. And doing what they had to do. So you're going, it's just mind-blowing to me. So and then on top of it, they come home and they get treated like shit.
Right.
So that's buried in them.
Yeah.
So you're going, how do you live like this? And a lot of them don't. So and you just go, wow. How do you not have empathy or for somebody who's living with that for so long? So when somebody comes in and starts to talk about it, you go, oh, this is important. So I didn't need them to tell me what to paint, just why. And we were cold, we were scared, we were always tired, we were wet all the time. You're going, holy crap! And the more they would come in and talk, and you're going, you're starting to put this picture together of what they've lived through. So it's important. And I got to the point where my wife would even be like, you got to stop filling your head with this, like you're depressed. And I was so depressed. And I had to paint this other painting. I had to purge all the things these guys were telling me. I had to purge it out. And this one painting I did was called The Weight of Memory. And it's not the one they asked me to do. It was another painting, and it was of this soldier with this blurred out face, and it's like this orange. And I'll have to show it to you.
I've seen it, and you'll get me a copy so I can put it up. But
sure.
Yeah, I do remember that.
But that helped me purge the things they were telling me. I didn't live it.
Yeah.
But I was getting depressed just by what they told me. I can't imagine living it.
I was expecting you to say you were purging by doing a painting of Gronk or something. Of just like
he's a lot
just
of fun.
He is.
Yeah.
So that medicine is a little even.
And he doing stuff with him he's just so much fun.
Right.
And that is something to balance things off.
Yeah.
But that one paint, and then when I did that painting, they didn't ask me to do it, and then they would come in. The guys would come in and they go, "That's me." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "That's me." And it was just called The Weight of Memory, and it was just, yeah.
I want to get into, there's one photograph that I've seen, and you've seen it on social media, of a soldier embracing you at a show.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing that. That's been a few years. What were the times that have impacted you in terms of the connection, the real connection? And that may be one, and I'll definitely put that in this. Moments. Do you have any significant moments that you recall that just stopped you in your tracks, or like stopped the brush because you just, did I hear that right, or like shocked you because you weren't there? And I would assume if we were put there, no matter how much Rambo movies we watched or anything, we'll never know.
Nope.
Right?
Nope.
But what was, any of those come to mind?
There was a few. So the photo you're referencing, that happened in the first public unveiling. So that was the first time that the public had saw the painting. And they meaning the Vietnam council that was creating the wall, Joe Marshall is his name, and Justin Latini and a bunch of this Harry Terry, and these guys had put on it was like a fundraiser. So you paid for tickets, and it was like a wedding. It had all these tables, and all these folks came, and we were unveiling the paintings. People from the State House there. So that was the first public thing. But if I go back to when these guys would come in, these 6 guys, these 6 in-country Vietnam vets, were only allowed in the studio. They wouldn't let anybody else in.
Okay.
They would be the only guys that wanted to see the painting. They were the guys who would come in all the time. And Harry Terrian, who was a Marine, 2 tours up on the DMZ. He was a guy in their group that they would always refer to. What does Harry think of the painting? They give their opinions, but then they would go, what does Harry think?
Nobody laughs until the
right.
general laughs kind of thing.
But they just had so much respect for him, and because rightly so. And he and I became very close over this project. And the guys would come in at different times of the day. Sometimes they would meet here in the middle. Hey, we're going to come in on a Wednesday afternoon to see the progress of the painting. And I would be painting as an artist. You're looking at it going, I don't know if this is right, meaning the looks. I got my own criteria. But they would come in, and I would watch them watch the painting. So as an artist, you're judging their reaction to your work. And I'm going, they don't say anything. Then you go, yeah, it looks good. I'm going, they're lying to me. Because I'm thinking, as an artist, you're trying to save my feelings.
Are you insecure about that?
Oh, 100%.
Oh,
every
that's a
painting.
shame.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, it never goes away. So I'm going, they don't like the painting. So they would leave, and I would paint out the faces. I even have video of, because I would send them. I go, look, I think you didn't like the painting, so I painted out the heads. And they would go, what are you doing?
Right.
We liked it. I'm going,
yeah.
but you didn't say anything. And one of the other guys called me back later. He said, Brian, you have to realize they can't even talk. Like some of these guys have to walk around the parking lot before they even get in their car and go home, because what you're painting is unlocking things. And I was like, oh, here I am misinterpreting that they didn't like the painting, and I'm painting over it. I changed the whole thing. And they're going, you're doing something to their memory. And I'm going, that was an eye-opener for me. I was just going, whoa.
And we know it's 2025, and we know so much more about post-traumatic stress disorder and dealing with trauma and mental health. And 5 years ago even, it wasn't get over it. It was men hold their feelings in, take an aspirin, suck it up. 10 years before that, even worse. And when these guys were over there, no conception. And the military wasn't any friend to them either, suffering. So you can only imagine like going through that and seeing their responses and not knowing how they're processing.
Let me add to that. So not only did we not know, when they came home, it was squashed into them even more because of the way they were treated. So you kind of go, it's bad enough not knowing. Now the opposite was true. Screw you guys are baby killers, you guys, all these things.
And the only thing maybe getting them through is thinking you'll come back like a World War II hero.
Which that's
with
how they
the ticker
started.
tape parades and stuff, and then you come home and being
that.
spit on.
Right. So it's the opposite.
Right.
So again, a lot of responsibility. And then so that was the first time in the studio. Back to your question. The next time was when a friend of mine came in, Vietnam vet, came in with his wife. And I said, hey, you want a sneak peek at this thing before it gets unveiled? Yeah. He comes in. Special Forces guy. I didn't even know this, Vietnam. And he starts tearing up. And I'm like, what? And he looks at the painting, and he looks at the young kid in the painting, and he goes, that's me. I'm like, what? I mean, it's nobody, but
right.
They gravitated towards one of those individuals in the paintings and could relate to it. And I was just going, what's happening here? This is an emotional thing. And to the photograph you referenced about this gentleman. So we're at this, there's hundreds of people in this event. And we unveil the painting, and the energy in the room changed. So all veterans there, and these guys get up off the table and start coming towards the stage. And now the stage has got a bunch of people on it, people from the State House, the senators there, and people who are running the thing. And I see this gentleman, and he's got to be in his 80s, and he's making his way to the stage. And a lady's helping him, and he is bawling. I don't know what to do. And all these people are around. I'm like, I'm going to lose it, right? I hug the guy. He disappears after I hug him. He's crying, he just hugs me, and he leaves. And I'm like, where'd this guy go? Who is this guy? I don't know anything about him. And I'm like, who is that guy? In the meantime, somebody just takes their camera and takes a quick picture. Actually, it was one of Steve Manchester, a best-selling author. He just takes a picture. And when you look at the photograph, the full photograph, there's me and this gentleman hugging. The painting is behind us. And then above us, weirdly, is 4 silhouettes of 4 heads on the ceiling. Well, there's 4 guys in the painting. There's 4 silhouettes looking down on both of it. It's just a, and the guy, I know he took the picture, he just went like click, and that was it, because there was people everywhere. I find the guy a year later. His name is Ron, and he has since passed. And he comes to the studio, and I said, what happened that night? He's like, I lived that exact scene. I'm like, what? And he told me when he was over there, and he's like, when I saw it, I just couldn't control myself. God. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
So you ask about those moments, and there were many, many, many moments. Really, but those were 3 big ones, and like I said, how do you not go, I need to do more?
Yeah.
I didn't live through that.
Jeez, I mean, you don't remember. Brian, tell me a photograph from 5 years ago on Instagram. Like anything you remember. You don't.
No.
And to this moment, I can see the whole thing. Other than I'm going to go back and look. I didn't think I noticed the silhouettes.
In the newspaper, they used it on the cover of the newspaper, but they had to crop it.
Yeah.
So that part of the photo is not in it. But when you look at it,
yeah.
And he said, and that whole painting, if you look closely at the first painting I did with the Never Forget one, it's called Forgotten Heroes. There's 4 guys in the painting, and they're coming out of the jungle, and they're just exhausted. One guy's injured, but the man in the front, he's holding dog tags. It's subtle, but there's a guy who's not there. The whole painting is about that. Because every time these guys when I first met them, it's all about the guys who didn't come back. It's all about them. So how do you paint that? And it was about those little dog tags so that guy who was crying told me he lived that scene. Exact scene. And I'm like, look, I made this up. I had another guy come in, he was a corpsman, and he had come in to see the painting after, and he's like, who's that guy in the painting? I put that guy on a helicopter. He died. I'm like, this is completely made up. I have a photo of him just pointing to it and going, that guy died. I put him on a helicopter. Like, so all these different things going on. You're going, wow.
You're a spiritual guy.
Yeah.
I mean, do you feel like the hand of God in a supernatural way is maybe allowing you to paint some type of contour on somebody's face, so in all the divine perfection of everything happens for a reason, somebody was meant to see that and say, that's my cousin, that's my neighbor, that looks, because these faces are like you know them.
Well,
so
again,
they're people, right?
You ask people to pose,
yeah.
And you have a look, or you see different images, and you kind of Frankenstein them together. You go, that's a good nose or a good face, and you kind of work. But it's got to be the look that they describe, meaning that, for lack of better terms, the 1,000-yard stare. And then they tell you the reason for the 1,000-yard stare, and you're going, how do you paint that? Because you're going, we were kids with guns, killing other kids with guns. And you're like, think about that.
Oh, yeah.
And then you go, come back to the world, live in this. We live in a bubble, and it's a beautiful bubble we live in here. You know what I'm saying? We don't deal with that every day. They dealt with that every single day. And just war in general. And again, that's go back to the show.
And being 17, 18, whatever.
Think about that.
You don't even know
I was
why
playing
you're
Atari.
there.
You know what I mean?
You don't even know why you're there. And to this day, we don't know why we're there officially.
Yeah, there's
you know
so
what I mean?
much.
So you, God, we again go back to my sons. I think in like.
Me too.
It's just
It's mind-blowing.
unbearable to even try to let your mind and heart go.
It's
there.
hard to go there.
Oh,
and just think about it. But they lived it. Right? Some guys more than once went over there. I'm like, how so the name of the show that we're doing at the Narrows in the fall, it's in the Valley of the Shadow, the cost of walking with death. What is the cost? It's different costs when you're thrown into the meat grinder of Vietnam versus a special forces guy who trained and purposely went in and knows what they're going to. And there's still a cost, right? Whether they're the ones dealing with death but they're walking in this valley with death. We don't. They've walked that. You cannot come out of that valley unchanged. You have to, somehow you're changed. That's different. And that's what this show is about. It happens to be different factions of wars or what do they call it? Theaters in war.
Combat theaters.
Combat theaters. Or, World War II versus special forces. It doesn't matter. It's about the human element of it and how you're changed or how war changes you or how walking with death changes you.
And, we live in such an insulated world, fortunately.
Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about, the bubble.
Now, the bubble.
Yeah.
And in history is taught in schools so we don't forget and we can learn from past and develop an appreciation or just understand why people were where they were. And even my mother's father, who I never knew because he was such a severe, gruesome man, alcoholism, but went to World War II and came back that way, right? And rather than look at him as such a unbearably unpleasant person to be around, your heart breaks years later with reflection and wisdom on my end to just be like, okay, I get it. Like I never can imagine what his eyes saw and what he experienced in order to get that way. But we understand, at least now, or you would hope that we would. And we can look back and kind of ask God for forgiveness for any times we dismissed some guy on the street who was just trying to live, and maybe he was on drugs or out drunk or something, but we don't know his experiences, and they're far more incredible than we can ever.
Oh, yeah.
What's the biggest trouble I had today? Like my gas
Perspective.
card didn't work.
Yeah, perspective.
Right. It's incredible. So from this point in the studio here, you're doing these paintings where we're looking at a handful of months. What's going to go on over the next few months? And is there anything that you need help with in messaging and getting the word out there? What would be the ideal situation from the minute I leave until the fall?
Well, so putting it all together, it's a big it's not just I got to finish the paintings, and of course, artists all know
and you're never done with them, right? Even when you give them away and they hang, you're never.
I'll keep changing them.
Yeah, you bring paint with you to the actual show and be like,
oh, listen,
do you really?
Can I borrow that painting back? I'm like, I'm gonna just play. Yeah, it's torture. People are like, just finish the painting. I'm like, no, you don't understand. It's not right.
Never done.
No, it's never done. And there's a great quote in the art world, and many of the artists always know it. It's like paintings are never finished; they're abandoned. You just stop working on it because you'll never stop. So and then times however many.
Can
paintings,
you overdo it? Do you feel?
Yeah, and you could kill a painting.
Yeah,
too.
right.
So I have friends who are great artists who'll come in and go, leave it alone, or they'll be, you need to fix this, or this is an area that needs to be worked on. You need to have those people you trust, and I do. And without them, I would be ruining these things all the time. And even to this day, I'm like, look at this mistake here. I would have changed this. It's torture. People think, oh, you color all day. It's like, no.
Who says that, Brian?
No, but I had a guy walk in here one day, out of the blue. He just walks in the studio, and he's like, looking around.
What a life you have.
No, he goes, must be nice to color all day long. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. And I just laughed. You know what I mean? But
I think
because
he
didn't. But people's just assumptions. We all assume everybody else's life is better,
right,
or perfect. or there's no problems with it. That's all he was doing. But what you were saying about what's going to happen. So with this show is I got to finish the paintings. I got to frame them. I have to. I'm having a book made for the show with all the paintings in it. There'll be essays in it. There'll be quotes from the veterans. Hopefully the veterans are supposed to come. These special forces guys are invited. So there's that. So a book needs to be made. So there's a lot of prep. There's going to be catering. It's so much to this show. There's going to be schools that are going to be coming in. That needs to be done. I am actually doing sponsorships this year, or this time. I haven't shown publicly in 13 years.
And we'll put the call out because I know a lot of people who would want to be a part in whatever small way they can. But I think that everybody right now there's a big push, especially we both do media.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I choose film and streaming and digital, and you're with paintings and art and everything, and there's this big push for storytelling before it's too late. Because we started to see the World War II guys go one by one. And then once they're gone, we never know the stories. And not just with World War II, but your parents and grandparents. And my son gave me a book at Christmas that had a million questions in there that you would fill in and answer to get to know who I am for him and maybe his son down the road.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think it's everybody has a story and they need to get it out there, not because they got to get anything off their chest, but your family deserves to know who you were and what you went through. And once those stories are gone, they're forgotten. And I think what you're doing is just, it's a sacrifice, because I know you're not in the military, you're a sole provider, you're an artist that can only make money based on your time.
Yeah.
It's not like you can, I don't know, but it's tough.
Yeah.
So for you to do you ever rue the day that the person walked in that first inspired you to do this? And I that's a loaded question because I know the answer, but like in some respects you go, because we know how temperamental life is.
Yeah.
One text you don't answer, one left turn instead of the right, your life changes.
Yeah.
And you may have said it, but was there one particular moment that was like, here we go?
No, I don't think so. It was
Okay.
It was definitely a bunch of those moments where you start to go, hey, I'm kind of on this path now that because of those little texts or directions or that goes into the backstory of how I even got to what I'm doing. I wasn't planning on doing any of this. My goal when I was working full time for a multi-million-dollar T-shirt company, and I left there thinking I was going to do that as a freelancer. Well, that dried up in a week because we had a falling out, and one guy says, he can't work for you, and most of the other companies stepped back. So you have to understand, here I am thinking I'm going to do freelance because I've spent a lot of time in this industry and made a name for myself, and it dries up in a week where I have one young child, one on the way, a mortgage, car payments, all these things. All of a sudden I have now nothing. So I become Mr. Mom while my wife shoulders working full time, and I'm trying to find my way. So I always go back and go, God meant for it.
But good thing your wife is Vivica A. Fox, who is she was a very successful movie actress. And I'm teasing.
No, my wife's an accountant.
And
like I tell people, I go, she's not a flaky artist where you go, you just convince your wife. No, she's very conservative, sharp accountant.
And God bless her for understanding this.
Tremendously.
Because I think that spouses of people like ours, or people like us,
they're special.
Because it's quite a sacrifice to not know.
Well, think about it.
Yeah.
Because and her parents,
every moment of every day.
Her parents, Portuguese.
Yeah.
Okay, so they speak no English. Old world Portuguese, who had retired from the Quaker Fabrics mills. So they don't understand what I do.
Right.
So she even said they're going to worry. She said,
of course.
We're not telling them that you left the job.
Do you want your daughter to date an artist?
Well, kind of like
that.
I know the road.
Right.
It's tough. She's like, we're not going to tell my parents for a few months, and we didn't.
Yeah, right.
And because they would have worried.
Yeah.
Not that they were jerks. They're salt of the earth people. They're wonderful people, but they would have worried. And then after a while, she's like, hey, Brian left his job. He's going to take care of the kids while I'm going to work. He's going to try to get his art career going, and that art path took many different things, but. And it was hard. And I'm not, I sum it up and it sounds easy, but I mean, there were tough times. You're fighting, you're arguing about different things, but when you both feel like God tells you to kind of go down this path, and that's really, you kind of get this, I don't know where the path goes. I thought I was going to do T-shirts. I ended up doing this, which is so much better.
Oh,
it's
course.
Crazier, and
Yeah.
it's because you don't know when you're getting paid. It could be months before you get
Well, there was
paid.
a time there were no, paintings on these walls.
None. I wasn't even in the studio.
So let's do this. We're going to take a little break.
Yep.
Come back with a little more lighter conversation. That was pretty heavy and interesting, and I'm thrilled to do it. And then we'll talk about some of your other disciplines and interests and things. So we'll be right back.